It's not necessary to actually filter and or extract records from a database that match a certain criteria just so that you can count them or sum them or average them. There are some database functions that are better suited for this task. For example, in this particular sheet, I'm just going to type some labels. And what I want to do to the right of these labels is actually insert some database functions. I'm going to start by inserting the DSUM function. So I type equals DS and all the functions that begin with DS appear, including DSUM. So I double click DSUM. All of these database functions require 3 parameters or 3 arguments. And the first of the 3 is the database. It wants to know what is the name of the database that you want to sum certain records. Well, it's called target list. And if you can press F3, which I can't, you can double click target list from the F3 list. I'm actually going to type target list. As I start typing TAR, it starts to give me a list of things that begin with TAR. And my named range is there, target list. So I can press the tab key. I'll then press comma. So the list is called target list. Now the field I want to sum is a column heading. And the column heading I named it actual. So I'll start typing A, and there it is there. So I can down arrow to actual. It's got the same sort of symbol we saw in the name manager earlier because it's a named range. And I'll press tab. I'll then press comma. And now it wants to know what's the name of the criteria. So I'll press C and R, and all my criteria turn up. And this particular criteria here was called crit 1. So I'll press tab or I'll double click. Basically, I'm wanting to sum the actual column or field in the list or database called target list, but only for those records that match crit 1. And I'll press enter. And there's my total there. Now this total here should balance with this list here. So I'm going to click on H8 and I'll press Ctrl Shift down arrow. I'll then look at the bottom of my screen on my status bar, and there's the sum of the selected cells there, 217845, which actually happens to balance with what I have back in H1. Under the sum, I want to work out the average, the maximum, the minimum, and the count. And to save me time, I'm actually going to fill this formula down. I'll then click on H2 and I'll double click DSUM and I'll type DA because I'm looking for a function that begins with DA called DAVERAGE, and I'll double click DAVERAGE and enter. I'll then click on the next function, double click DSUM and DM, and I'll double click DMAX, enter. On the next one, double click DSUM, DM, and now I want DMIN. And lastly, I want DCOUNT. So here we have the sum, the average, the maximum, the minimum, and the number of actual values that match crit 1 in the list called target list. And again, if I was to click on H8, press Ctrl Shift down arrow, the values that I see down here on my status bar do balance with those values that I have back at the top of column H. Now what we could do is also apply these functions to this list over here, but before we do so, let's just test that if we change the criteria, these functions automatically update. So I'm just going to change Tauranga to Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and Hamilton. Notice the functions are changing straight away. Immediately, they are telling you the sum, the average, the maximum, the minimum of the actual values for those records that come from those regions. But this is now out of date. So if you want this to be up to date, you're going to have to click your button to run your macro, which runs the advanced filter again. I've just run the advanced filter again, and these records here should now balance, if I highlight, and they do, these values here balance with what I'm seeing at the top of column H. Let's apply it over here. So I'm just going to take a copy of this area and paste it over here. I now just want to change in this area here all instances of crit 1 to crit 2. So I'll highlight this range and I'm going to press Ctrl H, which is find and replace, and I'll find every instance of crit 1 and replace it with crit 2. Replace all. And there were 5 replacements made because it only affects the area that I've highlighted, and OK, and close. And immediately it's updated all the functions to mention crit 2. I can tell straight away that if I highlight these cells here and look at my status bar, that these values down here balance 15900, 1500, 1012 and 1325 balance with these values here. If I was to change the information in here and say, look, I'm after Tauranga, Taupō, Whakatane, let's just get that capital H, even though it doesn't need it, I like it to be tidy, and Tukuroa. Immediately the functions update, but the data down here is not updated because we have to run our macro. So I'll run my macro, and therefore I have the information updated here, and when I highlight these cells here, the figures down here at the bottom of my status bar automatically balance with the figures here.